Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. After all the drama and controversy around the Seattle surge over the last few days, ACHES has come up with quite the clarifying statement on what he believes might be the root cause of the issue behind the scenes, saying that sure, whatever's happening with iLLeY, 80% of the league, if not more, are in the same boat, and that's the reason why people and players don't really want to talk about this as much as should actually potentially be the case. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Kremp is basically living the dream, by the way, of a player that's retired from COD, because everyone says, oh, you know, what are you going to do after aBeZy and everything? You know, this guy's just flying around the world. He's in Finland with the FaZe boys, doing something with Porsche. Like, yeah, I'm kind of jealous, I'm not going to lie. Couple of updates as well here from COD 2024, Treyarch's new game, that it was actually confirmed that it will be an October launch. I will say that, generally speaking, over the last few years, the better games, I think, have been October launches. I'm just thinking, I think Black Ops 4, I think Cold War maybe, but I think also MW19 might have been October, so maybe scratch that idea. So I don't really know, but apparently that is going to happen. So it sounds like it's going to be ready. Of course, if it's an October launch, I would love to have a December event, right? I mean, come on, surely we can make that happen, but I'm not massively confident. And it also does mean, depending when it is in October, there's a slightly longer leeway for the game to be fixed, because the game launches, it's broken, and takes a couple of weeks to fix it, generally speaking, until it's all good to go. Also wanted to mention this because I thought it was quite interesting, really, on the PGL CS2 Major. So obviously, one of the biggest events of the esports year in Copenhagen, but kick.com, right? Obviously controversial website for multiple reasons, but they are actually acquiring rights to stream this by, I guess, paying money to do so. But this is not going to be an exclusive deal. So they're paying money to stream it on Kick and have it available there. But it's not exclusive to Kick. You can also watch it on Twitch and YouTube. So I want to know how this is going to go, right? Just because who's going to watch it on Kick rather than Twitch and YouTube? Probably not that many people, I would suggest. But if people do, then Kick can, grow their audience somewhat and maybe try and become a bit more of a hub for esports events. So I just wonder, if Kick and Stake and the owners, are really throwing money around like this for non-exclusive deals. And sure, this is the CS Major, to be fair. It's not, regular Call of Duty League matches. But, could you imagine a world where Kick were paying money to just get the CDL streamed on their platform, but not even exclusively, and we could still watch elsewhere, but yeah, the teams were still able to generate some revenue via that, rights deal, that media rights deal, and yet we could, not be exclusive to YouTube and have it on Twitch as well. That would be a decent case scenario for all parties. But it would be basically relying on Kick wasting money, as far as I'm concerned, so I don't really know if we can necessarily rely on that. There's also been some talk about the Striker. Octane was getting roasted by some copy pastors going around for his performance in ranked play for the last few days, but he was trying out the Striker just to see if it's actually viable. Now, I will say this clip was not bad, to be fair. The first couple of kills that Octane gets here, okay, nothing that I couldn't do, but the final few kills were pretty impressive, and it does make me wonder about the Striker because, I mean, this gun is a beam, it has no recoil, it has pretty good damage, but look at the kill that he gets here, and the second one as well, as he closes out the game. I mean, that guy got incinerated, right, by the Striker cross map, which is an SMG, but as I say, it's kind of more of a hybrid weapon, really. But it's a weapon that the pros probably won't try, but all it takes is one pro to try it, and then a G8. Or maybe they don't G8, and maybe they actually use it, because you guys might remember the Uzi, right, from MW19. Envoy started using it, all of a sudden, it became more of a talking point. Quick update for you guys on the Rookie of the Year ladder. This is what Breaking Points currently have. So Linz, Gwyn, Snoopy, aBeZy, Estriel, and Purge. I think this probably makes a fair bit of sense. Linz has been the most impressive overall, and his team did very well at the Major. Gwyn has been solid, but, I think really it comes down to me a fair bit on how the team actually performs. Most of the rookies this year, arguably all of the rookies this year, are on pretty rough teams compared to the top ones. There's not any like of Scrappy or Shotzzy or, some of these top players that have come in even insight over the last few years and stepped at HyDra, stepped straight into good teams, or at least made those teams become good teams. The way that the league is currently stacked makes it quite difficult for even players like Linz, who are very talented, clearly, to show up big time. But, top 4 at the Major was very impressive. This is the objective ladder as well, so looking at various objective-related stats. For example, if you look at insights, looking at basically like hardpoint time per 10 minutes, hills captured, stuff like this. And Dashy is now down to second place. He was first for some time, but Insight takes over the #1 spot, which is very impressive that Insight's #1 in objective and he's still slaying as well as he is. That's the impressive thing to me. Dashy's still number 2, then Envoy Simp is actually up to number 4, which is pretty impressive. Like, Simp is still doing it all for FaZe from the objective standpoint, which he's been doing for the last couple of years, but he's now slaying as well. So 150 HP game, I guess Simp comes different. Kenny P5. And this is your AR ladder then. So Scrappy, Cellium, inside here is top 3 again. Dashy's actually up to 5th actually. And just quickly on honorable mentions, Skyz, Kenny, Sib, DiamondCon, Attach. They round out your top 10. I think nice to see DiamondCon get some representation here because he's been very solid so far. But yeah, Scrappy number 1, kind of a no-brainer. But we've got to talk about this whole, well, illy drama, because the fact that Seattle Surge aren't really addressing this, I think, has caused lots of debate. And maybe it's none of our business, right? And people say that, and I understand that perspective to a certain extent, but I also think that as a community, there should be some degree of responsibility to try and better the community in whatever way that we can. And we've talked about for years that there's various ways we could better the community, and I think the discussion on this is certainly one of them. So if you guys didn't see this, it was on their social medias. This, for example, is Seattle Surge on their Instagram story, where we can see aBeZy, we can see Hook, we can see aBeZy, we can see ACHES, but there's no illy on here, right? They dropped this old thing, you know, let them cook or whatever. So they made it quite clear, without explicitly stating it, that illy is gone. He's either benched or he's dropped or he's suspended, I don't know. And this is the issue with Surge not saying what the situation is, not explaining, is that it's opening the door to all this speculation, right? I think there's an argument maybe that some of the players, if illy was, you know, clean and there was nothing going on there, would be criticizing Surge for saying, look, I mean, how about you show some respect to the player that was on your team, was your best player statistically so far this season, and, you know, has obviously been a key part why the organization has had some reasonable success so far this year. You know, maybe deserve to show him some respect by actually saying something about what's going on, what the future is, the fact that maybe illy's still part of the team, but the fact that they're not saying anything, it's actually opening the door to the speculation and all this stuff, and further harming the reputation of illy, which is probably not for the best. And of course, due to the now pretty infamous interview, right, that took place on main stage back in Boston at Major 1, illy has been the prime focus of all this discussion and this narrative. But that does not necessarily mean by any means that illy's, you know, the only man affected by this whole situation. And this is what was said by ACHES quite explicitly really on the flank the other day. Now, the other guys didn't maybe want to address it so much. I definitely understand that, because we know what happened with the flank a few years ago when they were trying to address this issue, and we'll get into that here in just a second. But ACHES says straight up that he would still have illy on his team, because as far as he's concerned, 80% of the league, if not more, are arguably in a very similar boat to illy on this. So, you know, given everyone's on it already, then why not just get the best players? Which maybe is a fair argument. But if it's actually true, as ACHES says, that like 80+% are on it, then, I mean, wow, that's, to be honest, higher than I would have even expected personally. I know that back in the day, we're probably talking in the 90s, but to be honest, my feeling was that today it was probably a little bit less widespread. But it does make you wonder that if what ACHES is saying is true, then exactly why, you know, some of the players, let's say, aren't really addressing this situation as you might expect them to.
Hold on, I need to say something real quick, Ben.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the chat, I saw, obviously there's a lot of yapping, but before all that, I obviously said that I would rather have Ender on my squad because he's actually going to perform. And I'm just going to address this now just to get it out of the way. Like, regardless of the accusations currently against Ender, you might as well, and I'm telling you this honestly, you might as well accuse 80% of the league for the exact same shit. So just to keep it clear, the absolute truth, if I'm on a squad, yes, I want Ender on my team other than someone putting up a 0.5. Just a fact.
My fault.
My fault.
80% of
Just keeping it clear.
My fault. 80%. Yes. Yeah. My fault. 80% of the league.
At least.
Yeah. I was curious. Didn't somebody tweet something about a drug testing thing and how the drug testing, it says if it's in your system, but not how much you took? Or is that, did you guys read that?
Who said
For the
that.
drug testing system,
I'm pretty sure it was
and
Denza.
I know a little bit about it because
I actually, no bullshit, had no idea they couldn't test for how much, and I was doing the drug tests.
whenever I was
insane.
on the Decimate team and they qualified for the Pro-Am, they got drug tested, and like, or they said they were like they could be drug tested, and they basically like explained it to us, and it gets to a point where as long as you have a script, they won't care. And like even if you don't, let's say you get caught and you don't have a script, they're not going to do anything to you right away. They'll give you like time to come back with a script, etc., etc.
I don't know how true that is. That's a pretty crazy thing to say.
When did that start?
What the guy told me. That's literally what the guy told me.
Sam, when did the actual?
I'm just saying, I don't know if that's true or not.
The tweet that they were referring to, by the way, was this one between Denza and Daryl, where, you know, Daryl, of course, a coach for the Subliners, says that basically anybody can get a prescription, it's swept under the rug, and there really isn't any, you know, league needs to do more, etc., etc. Basically saying they don't test for quantity, and of course, as Octane was saying in the clip, he was like, damn, I didn't know that. Like, you know, I was doing the test and everything, and I wasn't aware. And even Parasite, I thought, made an, honestly, that's true, and we don't know if it's true, but it's an unbelievable point, right? That apparently, if you do a test, you're positive, and you don't have a prescription, it's like, well, you know, it's all right. It's just, you know, you can find one somewhere, right? And it's just one of these things where it's just easier for all parties just to pretend that this isn't happening and that it's not an issue. And it's also not a massive health concern. That's the other main point here that people always want to get across. And people always overlook this in the discussion. It's like, oh, well, you know, everyone's on it. It doesn't matter. Like, it's all a living playing field because everyone's using it. But, you know, that's not really true. And there's been lots of talk from Slasher over the years as well. I mean, Slasher's been probably the most vocal pro about this. This is even back at the start of last season when there was drama between FaZe and, of course, Slasher was on FaZe at the time and Drazah was on Thieves. It's kind of mind-blowing that that's now changed quite substantially. But even, you know, Slasher at the time was kind of heavily hinting as to what might be going on there with some of Drazah's plays. And, you know, Slasher said a similar thing in the past as well. I mean, there was a big debate here between, like, you know, JurNii and JCap and Slasher on exactly how it used to be back in the day and how it is today, and talking about how it gave people a competitive advantage, especially when they were playing really long match days, which was obviously more so a thing in the past. The real big debate on this, of course, was when Hook came out about it, right? And, you know, Hook talked about this in depth during the 2021 season, saying that he was, you know, using it during the 2020 World Championship. And I thought maybe after this happens, there might be, you know, some players come out and say, well, you know, I got cheated out of that World Championship. I can't believe it. Like, you know, this is outrageous. The league should do something or whatever. But, you know, if everyone's on it, as ACHES says, then you can't really make that argument, right? So it really is unbelievable. But yeah, obviously Doug says at the time, I think this was a really good tweet from Doug talking about how, you know, I hope we have a system to drug test players, not so much to make it an even playing field because I don't care if my competition takes it, more so for their long-term health. And I think this is the key point that, you know, most of the community is trying to get across here, that this is, you know, it's not a good thing that this is just done. It's openly done. It's an open secret. And people don't really seem to be trying to do anything about it. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section. But of course, you know, I just have to mention this legendary moment as well when this happens. And, you know, Ben was off on the phone in the background and there was lots of discussion at wild times in COD history. But I thought that, you know, back then, it was pretty crazy, right? Because it's the first time, really, since the CDL had become official where this was a big narrative. I might have expected that over the last 3 years, given they've now changed some things behind the scenes to try and address this, there might have been a change in perception, but it doesn't seem like it's the case. So hopefully the narrative around this can change at some point, but I don't know if that's really, if that's too optimistic thinking from our side. But very much intrigued to your thoughts and all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.